November 2nd, 1944. 26,000 feet above the oil refineries of Merseburg, Germany. The cold is a physical presence. It seeps through the fleece lining of Lieutenant Jack Riley's flight suit, bites at the sliver of exposed skin on his neck, and spiders across the inside of his perspex canopy in delicate crystalline ferns. Below, a carpet of thick white clouds obscures the earth, a false floor in an unforgiving sky. His world is reduced to this vibrating cockpit, the deep, resonant growl of the Packard Merlin engine in front of him, and the 50 other P-51D Mustangs of the 357th Fighter Group spread out like silver seeds against an endless blue canvas. This high, the sunlight is thin and sharp, without warmth. It glints off the polished aluminum of his wingman's plane, Tiny Rebel, flying 100 yards off his starboard side. Riley's own Mustang, nose painted in the distinctive red and yellow checkers of the 363rd Squadron, has a name stenciled just below the cockpit, the Gambler. It's a name that has earned him more than a few sharp words from his commanding officer, Major Grant. To Grant, flying wasn't a gamble, it was a science, a brutal equation of speed, altitude, and firepower. You followed the book, or the book would be the last thing you ever read. And the book on the P-51 Mustang was clear. It was a thoroughbred, built for one thing, speed. It could climb like a rocket and dive like a hawk. It was the perfect instrument for long-range escort, a guardian angel with 6.5 caliber machine guns. What it was not, the instructors had screamed, the engineers had proven with charts and graphs, was a turn fighter. Its laminar flow wings, so brilliant at high speed, were treacherous in a tight, high-G turn. They would stall violently, without warning, sending the plane into an unrecoverable spin. You pull back hard on that stick at 400 miles an hour, his first instructor had barked, his face inches from Riley's, and you are not a pilot anymore. You're just a passenger in a 9,000-pound coffin. The wings will shear clean off. Riley shifts in his seat, the parachute harness digging into his shoulders. He can still hear Major Grant's voice from that morning's briefing, a low growl of frustration. They'd been practicing ACM, air combat maneuvering, and Riley had tried it again. A high-speed reversal, using a technique he'd been developing in his mind, a theory born from his pre-war days as an air racer. He felt it in his bones, in the way the Mustang talked to him through the stick and rudder pedals. He believed you could trick the plane, momentarily bleed its energy to pivot, to turn a fatal flaw into a weapon. Grant had grounded him for the rest of the day. "Listen to me, Riley," the major had said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Your theories are going to get you killed. Worse, they'll get your wingman killed. You are here to protect the bombers, not to test the goddamn structural integrity of government property. You see bandits, you dive, you extend, you climb back up. You do not get into a turning fight. Is that understood?" Riley had said, "Yes, sir," but the idea wouldn't let him go. Now, high over enemy territory, the air is thick with a nervous electric tension. The B-17s they are escorting, the big friends, are still miles behind them, lumbering toward the target. Their job is to sweep ahead, to sanitize the air, to meet the wolves before they can reach the flock. He scans the sky, a constant, methodical sweep, left, right, above, behind. His neck aches. The oxygen from his mask tastes stale, metallic. The radio crackles with intermittent chatter, call signs and altitude checks that do little to break the profound sense of isolation. Up here, you are utterly alone, a tiny speck of life in an ocean of lethal emptiness. Then he sees it. Not a flash of metal, not a puff of flak, something subtler, a disturbance. High in the sun's glare, at 1 o'clock, a collection of tiny dark specks is growing larger with terrifying speed. They aren't moving randomly. They are organized, descending with the predatory grace of a falling blade. He feels a cold knot tighten in his stomach. This isn't a stray pair of fighters. This is a storm. He keys his throat mic, his voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline surging through his veins. "Yellow Lear, this is Yellow 4. Bandits, 1 o'clock high. Looks like the whole damn Luftwaffe." The radio erupts. "Tally-ho, I have them. Dropping tanks. Watch the sun, boys." The specks resolve into shapes, the blunt radial engine cowlings of Focke-Wulf 190s, and something else, sleeker, with inline engines. The new D9 model, the long-nosed Dora, a plane whispered about in debriefings, a machine that could match the Mustang in speed and climb. Dozens of them, a full Geschwader. They've been waiting, lurking at 30,000 feet, and now they are coming down with all the advantages of altitude and surprise. The sky, so peaceful moments ago, is about to become a maelstrom.
The American formation breaks. It's no longer a disciplined escort group, but 50 individual duels igniting across 100 cubic miles of sky. Riley shoved the throttle forward to the firewall, the Merlin engine responding with a deep-chested roar that vibrates through his entire body. He follows his element leader, diving to meet the first wave of attackers, the doctrine burned into his brain. Speed is life. Never sacrifice speed. The air becomes a three-dimensional chessboard of chaos. Tracers, like fiery red threads, stitch patterns across the blue. The percussive thud of his own 50 calibers is a comforting familiar sound, the plane bucking slightly with each burst. He sees a Focke-Wulf explode in a greasy orange fireball off to his left, its pilot failing to escape. He sees a Mustang from Blue Flight trailing a thick plume of black smoke, spiraling down toward the cloud deck below, a silent, graceful prelude to death. Riley's mind narrows, his focus shrinking to the patch of sky directly in front of him. His senses are on fire. He can smell the cordite from his guns, feel the subtle shifts in airflow over the wings, hear the changing pitch of the engine as he climbs and dives. He's no longer thinking, he's reacting, a fusion of man and machine. He latches onto a Focke-Wulf that's chasing another Mustang. The German pilot is target fixated, a fatal mistake. Riley closes the distance, the black cross on the enemy's fuselage growing larger in his gun sight. He walks the rudder pedals to steady the pipper, placing it just ahead of the engine cowling. A short, controlled burst. The rounds strike home, sparkling along the wing route. The 190 shudders, pulls up sharply, and then its canopy flies off. A small figure tumbles out, instantly lost against the vastness. A surge of grim satisfaction, but it's short-lived. In that moment of concentration, he has become separated from his flight. A quick, panic check of his mirrors reveals only empty sky. He rolls the Mustang, scanning the heavens. Where is his wingman? Where is his leader? The main furball of the fight has drifted miles away, a distant glitter of angry hornets. He is alone. And then he feels it, a subtle, wrong sensation. Two pairs of tracers flash past his right wing, so close he thinks he can hear them sizzle. His blood runs cold. He snaps his head around. Two Focke-Wulf D9s are glued to his 6 o'clock position, perfectly spaced, one at 500 yards, the other slightly higher and further back. Experienced hunters. They've caught him, isolated and vulnerable. The training manual screams at him, dive, dive and run. The Mustang has the legs on the Dora in a straight-out high-speed bav. He shoves the stick forward, and the Gamblet responds, its nose dropping toward the clouds. The airspeed indicator needle winds past 450, then 500 miles per hour. The scream of the wind over the canopy becomes a piercing shriek. The controls stiffen, but the Doras are staying with him. Their pilots are good, matching his dive angle perfectly, patiently waiting for their moment. Worse, as he scans below, he sees a third Dora pulling up from underneath, positioning itself to cut him off if he tries to level out. They are boxing him in, executing a perfect bracket maneuver. They are not just trying to kill him, they are toying with him, herding him into a trap from which there is no escape by the book. He can't outdive them, he can't outclimb them from this position, and he sure as hell can't outturn them, not in a conventional fight. The lead Dora is closing the distance now, its long nose spitting fire. The hammering sound of cannon shells striking his own aircraft is terrifyingly intimate. Clang, thump, thump. A shudder runs through the airframe. A warning light for the coolant system flickers on his dashboard. He's losing energy, he's losing options. He jinks left, then right, pulling G's that make his vision tunnel. But the German pilot is a master, mirroring his every move, his aim unshaken. The tracers are closer now, a hose of incandescent death just inches from his cockpit. I can see the pilot's helmeted head in the pursuing aircraft. He's being executed, methodically, professionally, by the book, and his own book has run out of pages. This is it, the moment of truth. He can follow his training, extend in a shallow dive, and let them chew his tail to pieces. Or he can do the one thing Major Grant, the engineers, and every instructor he ever had told him was absolute suicide. He can try the crazy turn. He can gamble everything on a theory that exists only in his head. The choice is no choice at all. He glances at the airspeed indicator, 480 miles per hour. The wings should tear right off. His hand tightens on the control stick. The German plane is a perfect silhouette in his rearview mirror, its cannons winking like malevolent stars.
There is no time left for thought, only for instinct. In the space between heartbeats, Riley commits. He is no longer flying the Mustang. He is having a conversation with it, asking it to do something that violates its very nature. His left hand darts from the throttle, a flicker of movement, almost too fast to register. His fingers find the flap lever and snap it down 1 notch to 10 degrees. At this speed, it's an act of aerodynamic blasphemy. The manual warns of catastrophic failure above 250 miles per hour. A violent, ear-splitting bang echoes through the cockpit as the flaps deploy into the supersonic airflow, acting like a massive air brake. The Mustang shudders violently, as if it has hit a solid wall. The deceleration is brutal, throwing him forward against his harness straps with bone-jarring force. Simultaneously, his right hand yanks the control stick back, not smoothly, but with a sudden, vicious pull, straight into his lap. The G-force is instantaneous and crushing. It feels like an elephant is sitting on his chest.
The blood drains from his head, his vision collapsing into a narrow gray tunnel. He fights the blackout, grunting, tightening his stomach muscles, screaming into his oxygen mask to force blood back into his brain. The world outside the canopy ceases to be a sky full of airplanes and becomes a meaningless, sickening smear of blue and white. The Mustang groans. Not the familiar hum of the Merlin or the rush of the wind, but a deep structural protest from every rivet and spar. It's the sound of metal being bent to its absolute breaking point. For a terrifying second, he's sure the instructors were right. The wings are going to fold up like a cheap paper fan. He can feel the controls go mushy, the telltale sign of an accelerated stall, the very edge of disaster. But in that same instant, his feet are alive on the rudder pedals. Just as the stall buffet begins to shake the stick, he stomps hard on the left rudder. It's the final, crucial ingredient. The combination of the sudden deceleration from the flaps, the massive elevator input, and the brutal kick of the rudder forces the P-51 into something that isn't a turn. It's a pivot, a violent, uncontrolled skid that somehow remains controlled. The Mustang's long nose slews sideways, swapping ends with an impossible agility. The aircraft isn't flying forward anymore. It's practically flying sideways, its momentum vector and its heading in violent disagreement. From the German pilot's perspective, it is an act of physics-defying madness. One moment, the American P-51 is there, perfectly framed in his Revi gun sight, a guaranteed kill. The next, it seems to stop in midair. The sleep fighter impossibly balloons in size, and then, in a blink, snaps around. It doesn't turn, it vanishes from his gun sight, replaced by an empty patch of sky. He overshoots, rocketing past the spot where his target used to be, his mind struggling to comprehend what just happened. There is no maneuver in any Luftwaffe training manual that can account for this. It's as if the Americans simply tore a hole in the sky and flew through it. Riley's vision begins to return, blooming from a gray pinhole back into a world of color and shape. The G-forces recede. His head feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The Mustang is still shuddering, complaining, but it's flying. It's stable. He has survived the impossible. The violent maneuver has bled off nearly 200 miles per hour of airspeed, but it has bought him something far more valuable than speed, a new position. He looks through his windscreen, his heart hammering against his ribs. The world has been turned upside down. The hunter has become the hunted. There, directly in front of him, no more than 150 yards away, is the sleek, long-nosed Focke-Wulf D9 that was just about to end his life. The German pilot is looking back over his shoulder, his expression surely one of pure shock and disbelief. He hasn't even had time to react, to break away. He is completely, utterly exposed. The black cross on his fuselage fills Riley's entire gun sight.
The flight back to RAF Leiston was the longest of Jack Riley's life. The adrenaline had worn off, replaced by a deep, trembling exhaustion and the cold certainty that he was about to be court-martialed. His Mustang, the Gambler, was a mess. The coolant leak had been minor, but the airframe felt loose, tired, as if the violent maneuver had aged it a decade. He could feel a new vibration in the wings, a constant, worrying shudder that reminded him of just how close he'd come to complete structural failure. He landed smoothly, but his knees were weak as he climbed out of the cockpit. The ground crew chief took one look at the popped rivets and strained skin on the wing roots and just whistled low. He was in Major Grant's office before he even had a chance to take off his flight gear. Grant was pacing, his face a thundercloud. "Riley," he began, his voice dangerously low. "I've just had squadron leaders from 2 different groups radio in asking what the hell you were doing out there. One of them said he saw you fall out of the sky like a brick. You were separated, you were alone, and you came back with your plane looking like it went through a meat grinder. Start talking." Riley explained, his voice hoarse. He described the ambush, the bracket, the certainty of death. And then he described the turn. As he spoke, Grant's expression shifted from anger to sheer, unadulterated disbelief. "You did what?" the major interrupted, stopping his pacing. "You dropped flaps at nearly 500 miles an hour? You intentionally tried to stall the aircraft while pulling maximum Gs?" He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "It's impossible. You should be dead. The wings should have come off." "Sir, I'm telling you what happened," Riley said, his voice flat. "It was that or nothing." "I think you're delirious from lack of oxygen," Grant snapped. "Go get your gun camera film, now." The debriefing room was dark and smelled of stale cigarette smoke. Riley threaded the film into the projector himself, his hands shaking slightly. The usual crowd was there, flight leaders, the squadron intelligence officer, and Major Grant standing in the back, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. The projector whirred to life, casting a flickering black and white image on the screen. The
The first part of the film was standard combat footage, the break, the dive, the quick, efficient kill of the FW-190. Then came the part Riley dreaded. The view stabilized, showing nothing but empty sky. Then, the jolt as the first tracers flew past. The camera shook violently as he jinked. Then the two Doras appeared, perfectly framed, one behind the other, closing in on his tail. The room was utterly silent. You could see the lead German fighter getting larger and larger, its cannons blinking. It was a classic, textbook execution. And then it happened. The screen erupted into a chaotic, incomprehensible blur of gray and white, a violent whipping motion that lasted for maybe 2 seconds. It was impossible to tell up from down. A few of the pilots in the room gasped. When the image stabilized, the room fell into an even deeper silence. There, dead center in the crosshairs, was the tail of the FW-190 D9. Before the German pilot could even react, a stream of .50 caliber rounds tore into his fuselage and left wing. The Dora staggered, belched smoke, and then exploded in a flash of white that filled the entire screen. Major Grant's voice cut through the darkness. Stop the film. Rewinded. They watched it again, and a third time, and a fourth. The pilots murmured amongst themselves. They had never seen anything like it. It wasn't flying. It was a magic trick. The intelligence officer was scribbling furiously in a notepad. The engineers who had been summoned to the room were shaking their heads, arguing in ash tones about stress tolerances and aerodynamic loads. It's a fluke, one of them muttered. The film must be damaged. The film don't lie, a voice said from the back. It was Arnold Markwell, a visiting command officer from 8th Air Force Headquarters, a man with a chest full of ribbons and a reputation for seeing things others missed. He had been observing quietly, his face unreadable in the projector's flickering light. He stepped forward. The room went quiet. Markwell looked not at the screen, but at Riley. His eyes were sharp, analytical. The anger and disbelief that had filled the room were gone, replaced by something new, an intense, focused curiosity. "Run that back one more time, son," the colonel said, his voice calm and authoritative. "And this time, talk us through it. Every single input, every vibration. Don't leave a damn thing out."
The scene shifted. The cold, damp debriefing room at Leiston gave way to a wind-swept airfield somewhere in the English countryside 3 months later. The raw, desperate improvisation born over Mercerburg was now on the verge of becoming science. Lieutenant Jack Riley, who had expected a court-martial, was now standing on a wooden platform, addressing a group of 24 fresh-faced pilots, their silver wings still shiny on their chests. Behind him, his P-51, the Gambler, sat gleaming, its skin repaired, its name now a quiet legend within the group. Colonel Markwell had seen the truth in the flickering gun camera film. He saw not recklessness, but a radical solution to a deadly problem. Riley was temporarily reassigned from combat duty. His days were now spent with aeronautical engineers from North American Aviation and seasoned test pilots. They subjected his story to rigorous analysis. They put Mustangs into wind tunnels, studying the chaotic airflow over the wing with flaps partially deployed at unthinkable speeds. They filled chalkboards with equations, trying to quantify the precise moment of aerodynamic rebellion that Riley had harnessed. They discovered a hidden truth about the P-51's laminar flow wing. When combined with a sudden reduction in power and a notch of flaps, the wing didn't just stall catastrophically. For a fraction of a second, it created an immense bubble of high-pressure drag, a parachute of air that allowed the plane's momentum to carry it forward while the rudder yawed the fuselage around. It was a high-wire act on the very knife edge of physics. Too little rudder and you'd simply slow down and get shot. Too much and you'd enter a violent, unrecoverable flat spin. Timing was everything. The maneuver was officially designated the high-speed rudder reversal, but to the pilots who learned it, it was always the Riley reversal, or, more simply, the crazy turn. Now, Riley was its first instructor. "Look," he said, his voice carrying over the wind, "this isn't something you do for fun. This is a last-ditch, break glass in case of emergency move. You do this when you have a bandit on your six who you can't shake, and you're out of sky and ideas." He walked them through it, not with equations, but with the language of a pilot. "You'll feel the airframe scream at you," he explained. "Everything in your body will tell you to stop. You're going to pull G's that will try to put you to sleep. You have to fight it, and you have to have a feel for it. The moment you feel that pre-stall buffet shake the stick, that's when you kick the rudder. Not before, not after. Exactly then. A few weeks later, you are a new cadet, 21 years old, with maybe 200 hours in your logbook.
You're at 20,000 feet with your instructor in a two-seat trainer Mustang. He demonstrates the maneuver first. The plane shudders so violently you're sure it's coming apart. The world outside is a nauseating blur. Then it's your turn. Your heart is a drum against your ribs. You push the throttle, build the speed, 450 miles per hour. Your instructor's voice crackles in your headset. All right, son, on my mark. Flaps, now. Stick, now. Rudder, now. You do it. You slam the controls, and for 2 seconds, you are a passenger in a metal hurricane. The G-force is a physical blow, blurring your vision. But you come out of it, heart pounding, sweat stinging your eyes, pointing in the opposite direction. You have survived. You have a new weapon in your arsenal, a final, desperate trick gifted to you by a pilot who dared to fly by feel instead of by the book. The crazy turn, the reckless stunt mocked by instructors, became a cornerstone of late-war aerial combat doctrine for Mustang pilots. Gun camera footage from 1945 shows it being used time and again, turning defensive situations into offensive victories over the skies of Berlin. It was a maneuver so effective, so uniquely tied to the P-51's characteristics, that it was taught and refined for years, passed down to the pilots who would fly the Mustang in Korea and beyond. It stands as a powerful testament to the fact that in the crucible of war, sometimes the greatest innovations come not from a design bureau or a laboratory, but from one person, alone in the sky, with nothing left to lose, and the courage to make a crazy turn.